So today we're talking about the way it works. So take a breath with me. Anybody in here ever plant anything? Anybody in here ever plant tomatoes and get corn? No. Wonder why not? But how many of us, this is a little too hot, right? Oh, my bad, it's not feedback. Well, it is, but it's an alternate universe feedback. God's call. How many of us plant and think that we're getting something we didn't plant? How many of us are surprised by what shows up in our lives and think it's somebody else's fault? Just me? We'll go with that. It's because we don't understand the mechanism of ourselves. It's because we don't understand how we work. And how we work is exactly the same way as the tomato seed works. It's the same way that the kernel of corn that grows corn works. See, whatever creation is, in the tomato seed it put the activity of a tomato. And so there's nothing else that can happen other than tomato. That's it. Because the tomato doesn't have this thing called will. It's just a tomato. Now, nature has some laws, and depending on how those natural laws are working will depend on the size and the flavor and the vitality of the tomato you get. Because if you plant your seed, and if we treated our gardens like we treat our mind, we would grow nothing. Because how many times have you planted your garden and 20 minutes later you go out and dig it up to make sure it's still there? Never. But that's what we do mentally. We're constantly, nope. Plant, dig it up, plant, dig it up, plant, dig it up. If we give ourselves 20 minutes. Mostly, I'm lucky if I give myself 20 seconds before I'm rethinking. And that is because I have not taken the time to get clear about what it is I'm planting. And oftentimes that lack of clarity is because I'm not planting consciously. I'm planting in reaction to you. Or to whoever's on my TV screen. Or to whoever is in political office. Or to whoever pulled out in front of me in traffic. Rest assured, when we plant from that, we are planting the thing we don't want. Hate is hate. You cannot focus on hate and plant love. Can't happen. Any more than you can plant a tomato and get corn. It's not going to happen. So it behooves us to get clear about how we work. Because we are not separate from creation itself. In the chapter, The Way It Works, and the thing about Holmes is, he titles them different chapters, but he repeats it a lot. Which for me is a good thing, because it's a different way to read it each time, and every time I read it, I get something new. See, none of us object to the principle, if you plant tomatoes, you are going to get tomatoes. In fact, we count on it. But most of us, when we hear it is done unto us as we believe, boom, the defense system ignites, and we have a whole list of things that were not my fault. That's not what it's talking about. This teaching never presupposes that any of us have the capacity or the ability, or that we even should, to control another person's behavior. So if you hear it is done unto you as you believe, has some magical power that you can control another person's behavior, no. You're hearing that through a filter that wants to control people. Did you catch that? If you hear it as blame, it is because you live in a consciousness of blame. Now, if you hear it from the position of blaming someone else, there's only 3 positions on the triangle, folks. So if you have a villain, you're either the hero or the victim. Chances are good, if you're pointing fingers, you're the victim. Just saying. None of us want to own that. But the minute we blame, it is from a victim perspective. That's how it works. I would love, trust me, I want it to be different every day. It's not. See, when you pull out in front of me in traffic and you make me slam on my brakes and you activate my amygdala that tells me I almost died, even though I didn't. I went from 25 to 20 in a hurry. That's not almost dying. But my amygdala thinks you almost tried to kill me, and then in a nanosecond, it makes up a whole story about what a piece of trash you are, and how incompetent you are as a driver, and how you shouldn't have a driver's license, and you did it on purpose. Because I'm just that important. That out of all the drivers on the road, you waited until I got there. I'm not alone. The only way we have that thought process about someone else is because we have that thought process. See, I cannot have a thought process about you that I don't have about me. How many of us are here? 1. I know it looks like a room full. That's the confusing dance. But there's one mind. Your brain is not your mind. Your brain is the hard drive in the computer called you. It's not your mind. Mind is invisible. Mind is the infinite. Why are we subjected to thoughts that we don't remember thinking? Because they probably happened 1,000 years ago. But they're still our mind. We're all functioning from one mind. It's called memory. It doesn't have to be a memory that happened in your lifetime for you to have a memory of it. We have this thing called evolution. And evolution is building on previous thought. Thoughts are things. Okay? So everything came from a prior thought. This building didn't start looking like this. It started with getting under the tree limb when it was raining. And if we keep going back, I invite you, if you're comfortable, just to close your eyes for a minute and go on a little journey with me. Imagine you know nothing about science. Nothing. You know nothing about anything. And you suddenly become conscious on planet Earth. You're the only one there. And you notice that your body feels warm. And you notice that there is a light in the sky. And you begin to reason, the light in the sky is making me warm. That's the beginning of awareness. And as this thing that we now know, night, happens, but you don't know about night yet. All you know is the temperature is changing because your body's feeling cooler. And it's getting dark, but you don't even know what darkness is yet. And then you notice tiny little points of light in the darkness. And you begin to theorize that is that light still there. And you might take your hands and cover your eyes and begin to understand that, okay, if I cover my eyes, I get darkness. So whatever that light is, whatever it is covering itself. And then you see the moon rise, but you don't know it's the moon. You just know it's a round orb. It looks like the one that left, but it's not as hot. And so we begin to think and reason that it's showing itself as a promise that it's still there. And lo and behold, the next morning, the darkness pulls itself away, and that light that you reasoned would still be there is still there. That is how the human mechanism of reasoning and logic and evolution happens. I need you to take a breath with me and open your eyes if you choose. Now everything after that is building. And we get this thing called self-fulfilling prophecy or hindsight bias. We got all kinds of names for it. But the bottom line is what we thought got validated somehow. Because if I made up the story that the light is still there and the little pinholes in the drape that covered it were promising that it's still there, well, when that went away and it was still there, I'm right. Wow. Doesn't matter that I'm not, because there was no veil, and they're not pinpoints of promising anything, they're stars, but I don't know that yet. And so I get my belief system, my hunch, validated over and over and over. Every night when the sun goes down and the moon comes up and stars are out, and then in the morning when it comes back, my belief system is reinforced. And it's not until one of us becomes brave enough to question, maybe that's not all that's going on here, that we begin to explore more deeply. Because had we been satisfied with that explanation, we would still know nothing about science. Nothing. But we ask. And why do we ask? That's the piece where I think we miss the gift of creation as us. It's not the answers, it's the asking. It's the questions. It's the power of curiosity. It's the possibility of a new experience. The divine cannot create to expand itself. It's already infinite. You can't get more of infinite. It creates to expand its experience of itself. It is done unto us as we believe. It's not talking about other people's behavior. It's talking about how we experience other people's behavior. I don't have the power to make sex trafficking stop. If I singularly had the power to make sex trafficking stop, trust me, it would be no more. I do not, as one human being, have the power to make racism stop. If I did, it would be done. But what I do have is the power to dictate how I experience the behaviors of others. I am solely responsible for how I choose to respond. I can put on blinders and pretend like I didn't hear that. Or I can take a breath and I can inquire, what is mine to do here? And I assure you, it's different in every encounter. It's different. And that's the brilliance of creation. No two snowflakes are alike. That blows my mind. Out of the millions, billions, trillions, uncountable snowflakes, we have such diversity, no two are alike. So doesn't it make sense that every interaction you have is just that magnificent? And yet, maybe it's just me, but don't we love our predictability? Don't we? Don't we find a response that works for us and want everybody to do it? It's that place where we walk around, if they would just get it together. And what we really mean when we say that is if you would just do it like me. Do you have any idea how bored you would be if that happens? Think about it. How much time do you genuinely, authentically, at the core of your being, love to spend completely in a vacuum with you? If you have a TV and it ever turns on, you don't love it that much. You're willing to pay a cable company to distract you from yourself. Just saying. Don't make you bad. I have one. But we have to get honest about what we're actually doing. Probably my favorite part of this chapter is how much can we believe? How much can we believe? Because all of those phrases, it's always been this way. Really? Ain't nothing always been anything. If it were true, we wouldn't be in a building. We'd still be naked under the stars trying to figure out weather. Because nothing would have changed. We, quite honestly, if nothing were to change, I'm pretty sure we'd all still be an amoeba. Things change all the time. It's not that things don't change. It's that we refuse to change with change. Today, an amazing human being named Sarah Thomas is doing something remarkable. Do you know who she is? Sarah Thomas is the first female referee to officiate a championship game in the NFL. Now, I assure you, there was a time when our collective consciousness had no belief that a woman could do that, should do that, and certainly would never be allowed to do that. Because we actually were operating under the illusion that folks that look like me had control over folks that don't look like me. What a ridiculous idea. And all I'll tell you is this. When you challenge these deeply, deeply conditioned beliefs that are held by a culture, by a society, by a group, you will get pushed back. You will. So what? So what? Because if you didn't push, we get nowhere. Anybody familiar with the Wright brothers? Self-taught engineers. They had no funding. They had no backing. They had no support. What they had was a whole lot of ridicule. What they had was a whole lot of people going, you built bicycles, for God's sake. What makes you think you can build an airplane? Because that's what they did. They built bicycles. And it was the very technology that they taught themselves to build bicycles that created the three-axle miracle that allows an airplane to steer itself. Imagine that. If they had settled for, you just build bicycles, I don't know if we'd fly or not. But I know it would have happened differently. And even today, there are still arguments over whether or not they actually invented what they invented, because there's a collective perception that they weren't smart enough to do it. So it had to be somebody else behind the scenes that did it. We love our perceptions. We love our limitations. And can we just quit lying and saying we don't? Because until we stop lying, we can't grow past them. If I have no belief that we can expand as human beings, I don't even try. And then when you try, it scares me, and so I have to make you stop trying. Sound like politics? Sound like marriage when you want a washer and dryer and they don't? Seriously. It could be something as simple as a dishwasher. Huh? I want a dishwasher. What's wrong with the sink? And it goes on from there. How much can we believe? The infinite is just that. It is infinite possibility. It is not predictable probability limited by your imagination. That's your issue. That's your humanness. And what I want you to get deeply is what is available to you will literally blow your human mind. See, we can't even conceive of what's available to us. So we take little baby steps. But first we have to get clear that, holy crap, I'm living in a limited belief. And we have to embrace this thing called cognitive dissonance. That literally, cognitive dissonance is just the internal warning system from your ego. Now, I'm looking at faces. I know we all are about the same age group. Lost in space. Warning, Will Rogers. Warning, warning. That's your amygdala. That's the center of your ego, because it perceives your expansion as a threat. Because it may not like the limitation, but it knows it, it's comfortable in it, it has established a sense of safety. I invite you to consider that maybe it's not fear that you're experiencing, maybe it's excitement. Maybe no one has a gun pointed at your head. Maybe you're about to get on the most magnificent roller coaster ride you've ever been on. And you're perfectly safe. It's just exciting because your amygdala doesn't know the difference. It just fires off your autonomic nervous system that goes, stop! And you either do, or you go, thank you for the information. I have done an assessment. I'm perfectly safe. So are you. Here we go. And give it a chance to evolve with you. Because if you've ever challenged a fear on the other side of it, your capacity for courage is bigger, is it not? Any woman who has ever given birth understands this. Because there is nothing comfortable or familiar or safe about giving birth for the first time. Biologically, they measure pain, and quite literally, the pain measurement that a woman experiences giving childbirth medically kills her. Yet it doesn't. That's pretty amazing. It's pretty amazing. And the next child, different experience. I have a very dear friend in Minnesota who's given birth to a small clan. And by the time she gave birth to Eli, hey, it's no big deal. I'm not even going to the hospital. I'm just going to do it here at the house. And that's exactly what she did. You know? Because her capacity has expanded 4 times previously. She knew what to expect. No big deal for her. How much can we believe? How much will we believe? I want to circle back and end with a poem that, if it wasn't so long, I probably had it tattooed somewhere backwards where I could read it in a mirror all the time. But it reminds me, because this idea of expansion, it can be hard. It can be hard when we bump up against people that have beliefs and they want to make their beliefs about you. They want to limit you because their belief is limited. And so to push past that can be painful. We can perceive that as hard. Reverend Dr. Howard Thurman. I will try to do this without emotion, but don't hold your breath. The moments of my high resolve from the inward journey. Keep fresh before me the moments of my high resolve. Despite the dullness and bareness of the days that pass, if I search with due diligence, I can always find a deposit left of some former radiance. But I had forgotten. At the time it was full-orbed, glorious and resplendent. I was so sure that I would never forget. In the moment of its fullness, I was sure it would illumine my path. For all of the rest of my journey, I had forgotten how easy it is to forget. There was no intent to betray what seemed so sure at the time. My response was whole, clean, and authentic. But little by little there crept into my life the dust and grit of the journey. Details, lower demands, all kinds of cross currents. Nothing momentous, nothing overwhelming, nothing flagrant, just wear and tear. If there had been some direct challenge, a clear-cut issue, I would have fought to the end and beyond. In the quietness of this place, Surrounded by the all-pervading presence of God, my heart whispers. Keep fresh before me the moments of my high resolve, that in fair weather or foul, in good times or in tempest, in the days when the darkness and the foe are nameless or familiar, I may not forget to that which my life is committed. Let's take this into prayer. Recognizing there is only one infinite, ever-present source. That it is the absolute. That it is pure possibility. That it is the mind, the activity, and the form of all creation. That it is everywhere present. Everything seen, everything that has ever been seen, and every possibility that remains on the unseen side. In this truth, it must be my life. All that I have ever been, all that I am now, all that I will ever know as I become more of it, more aware of it as me, is it in form. I am a center where the divine knows itself as my life. And what is true of me is true of all, each apparently separate individual. Nothing more than an individualized experience of the divine to itself. Surrendering its experience completely and fully to our use of its mind. Trusting each so completely that it lets go. That it never stands in the past. That it is never fearful of the future because it only knows the present. What is true of it must be true of all. So we are each that, operating, knowing itself, being itself in each moment of now, in complete totality. Never harmed, can't be harmed, knows only the riches of pure possibility, pure love, infinite intelligence. And so I claim for all of humanity that we simply surrender as it has surrendered and allow ourselves to know the truth of who we are. To expand how much can we believe? How much will we believe? And as we step into that, it happens. Because that is how the law works, and I am grateful to know that just as quickly as it's formed in mind and spoken in voice, the very creative power that says it does it. It can't be any other way. Because it cannot be in conflict with itself. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. It only knows yes. And it says it every time. And so it is in this gratitude, with this heart expanding with joy, that I release my word, which is the word of the one, word of the mind, into that aspect of itself called the law. I let it go, and I simply revel in witnessing the manifestation of thought. And I invite you, if any aspect of this prayer has resonated with you, that you claim it as your own, as we say together.
And so it is.